Hello and welcome to another edition of Blind Eye Live. It is Friday, April 30th. Round 1 of the NFL Draft is in the books. Day 2 is tonight. I've got some opinions on last night. Raiders fans, cover your ears or get your pitchforks. One of the two. Because we're going to get into that today. I'm going to talk about what I liked and what I didn't like in round 1. Analyze a few of the more interesting picks and take a flamethrower to John Gruden and the Raiders organization. But of course, I am Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, owner and proprietor of Blind Eye Media, a small internet media firm. And let's just roll into it today. So last night, for anyone who missed it or whatever, was the NFL Draft first round. So we got the first 32 picks. Of course, no surprise. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 to the Jaguars. Quarterback of the future. Of course, then number 2, Zach Wilson, which seemed like we knew that pick has been coming all spring, especially after his amazing pro day. Just another passer that has all the tools. And then the intrigue started at 3. Of course, there was a bunch of hubbub, like who was going to go at number 3. Everyone was ready to just dunk all over the Niners when they took Mac Jones. And instead, they take Trey Lance, who absolutely, if we're going by measurables and everything, of course he's, and just tools, he has a higher ceiling than Mac Jones. Even though the greatest quarterback of all time has worse physical tools than Mac Jones, Mac Jones' ceiling is just some average, quarterback or whatever. But I love the Trey Lance pick because I actually think Trey Lance has a great head on his shoulders. I've had him ahead of Justin Fields the entire process. Dude has incredible physical tools. It's an argument between him and Fields for who is the better, or who has better tools, in my opinion. I think Lance is a little more powerful as an athlete than Fields, and I think his mind is better, so I had him ahead of Fields. And I basically moved him ahead of Mac Jones. So I thought the 49ers, this is a great pick. If they drafted Mac Jones, they probably could have been looking to move on from Jimmy G, earlier. But with Lance in the fold, I would argue that they shouldn't rush him along, personally. So Lance went number 3. Kyle Pitts, which this was no shocker when he went number 4 to Atlanta. Good pick. So at this point, I've got, A pluses for all these picks. And then the Bengals, this is where I really felt like the draft was going to begin, because I knew a quarterback was going 3. And by the time the draft got here, to me it seemed like Lance was going to be the guy. So, which, if anyone remembers back to some of my previous shows, what did I say after, Fields had his second pro day? Oh, well, Trey Lance has a second pro day coming up. I bet you the 49ers are going to take Trey Lance because, and I was kind of joking, but, it seemed like every time someone had a pro day that the 49ers were at, but the 49ers were with with Trey Lance last, so Just interesting. But Chase to the Bengals, I thought this was a great pick. If anyone saw how the first round played out, spoilers, less tackles went in the first round than I expected. Should I say, less tackles that I expected to go in the first round went than I expected. We'll get to the Raiders. But I thought the Bengals I think they made the right choice here. Especially when you look at how things have broken down with the tackles. They're going to have multiple guys. Well, pretty much, they could even have another guy on the board. I think he'll go before the Bengals pick. But Tevin Jenkins right now, spoilers, Tevin Jenkins is still on the board, who I have raved about during the draft process, or, the lead up. I thought he was easily the fourth best tackle. And him and Darius were really close for me. And Jenkins is my favorite offensive tackle in this draft. So, and he could be there when the Bengals pick. At worst, they're going to get to choose probably between Liam Eichenberg, Jalen Mayfield, Samuel Cosmi, and Dylan Radins, who I like all of those guys. So the board has fallen perfectly for the Bengals, as far as I'm concerned, since picking Chase. But I love getting your quarterback's favorite receiver, or arguably favorite receiver, that he has great chemistry with, and putting him in that offense, which then slides T. Higgins into a role as the number 2 guy, and as probably your primary red zone and contested catch kind of guy. Although Chase can do that stuff too. A role that he is absolutely more than qualified for. Like, Higgins goes from, he can play the 1 to, oh my goodness, you have a great number 2 receiver. And then, of course, Tyler Boyd is one of the most consistent and most productive slot players in the league. I mean, the Bengals offense, I really like what they're doing with their weapons. Then at 6, I don't necessarily have an issue with Waddle to Miami, but like I've said in the past, because of who they have, Devonta Smith made more sense to me, personally. And because of what they did at 18 instead of what I was saying they should do, this pick comes even more into question. Tua has Devonte Parker, a big physical, like downfield contested catch type receiver, red zone type receiver. You've got Mike Gesicki, who is a red zone threat, move tight end, like really great athlete, big athletic receiver type. And then you have Will Fuller, who's very much a speed, stretch the field kind of guy. And a guy who you hit on kind of, it's like you're either targeting him deep down the field, you're targeting him on intermediate, like, to deep crossing routes, and you're running him on drags and hitting him on screens. That's exactly what Waddle is. Now, Fuller's only on a 1-year deal, and Waddle's faster and shiftier than Fuller. But to me, this team, if you were going to go with the guy who would give a difference of play style, Devonta Smith was that guy. And I had some of my friends last night talking about how Jaylen Waddle, it seemed like Tua liked Waddle better than Smith. Although I never saw that. And considering Smith was Tua's, like, favorite target that last season in Alabama, and I think Waddle was like 4th. That kind of didn't make sense to me either. And as for Waddle, he was asked which quarterback he thought was better, Tua or Mac Jones, and he didn't hesitate when he said Mac Jones. And Waddle didn't necessarily look super thrilled about getting taken by Miami. He didn't necessarily look upset, but he didn't seem like over the moon about it. I think if they were going to go receiver, they should have gone Devonta Smith, personally. And Devonta Smith was my number 1 receiver. But there's another argument, because like the other idea was they go offensive line, they shore up tackle. They could still do that in the second round here, at the top of the second round at 35. And it'd be hilarious if they ended up with Tevin Jenkins at 35, who I wanted them to take at 18, because he's exactly the fit. Now, he'd have to get past Jacksonville, which Steve Lynch of Scouts Inc., Ty McShay's right-hand man, did a second-round mock draft, and he had Tevin Jenkins going to the Jaguars at 33. I could see that happening, but I feel like after the Jaguars went Travis Etienne, Trevin Morig is still on the board. That's who I had them going with their second first-round pick at 20. What was it? 23? 25. 25. I'm sorry I've gotten back on the Jaguars here, but I feel like the Jaguars need to shore up defense, and safety is their weakest point. So go Morig, or Christian Barmore's still on the board. Improve that defensive line with Barmore would be a great option too. Or you could get one of the corners that fell. Well, in my book, he fell. Asante Samuel. Well, I don't know. I kind of figured Samuel could be available at this point. Although they tend to like longer corners, and he's smaller than the typical corner that they seem to like. So, I don't know. Although they do have a new staff there in Jacksonville. The Waddle pick's not bad, necessarily, but I don't love it. Let's see. What did Munch have to say about this pick? It's another reunion between... Because, I mean, and this is the thing with Waddle and Tua as well. Waddle's not going to get to showcase, I don't think, all of his talent because of how they're going to play this year. I feel like he's going to be pretty much slants and screens. He might get some deep shots, and who knows, maybe they'll do more. But they have kind of a crowded receiver room, and considering how the Dolphins like to play, I just don't know how. I think this was a pick thinking about the future, which is good to have a forward focus, but I think Smith would have contributed more right away, especially with his ability to route run and separate early. Like, Waddle has amazing speed and ability, but Devonta Smith is the most polished receiver in this class, and he has great suddenness. He has really good speed. So, then the Lions get to just knock their pick out of the park with Penei Sewell falling there. You can leave Taylor Decker at left tackle at first and start Sewell at right tackle. You can move Decker to right tackle and have Sewell play left. I think this was a great pick for them. They still need... and Decker is coming... I went right here. Decker is coming off a great season, in my opinion. Decker's arguably... and because I've heard people talk about the Lions don't have like a left tackle or don't have this or that, and I'm like, Taylor Decker's just underrated. He's really underrated. But I like the idea of let's protect Goff. Let's build a strong offensive line. I love that from Campbell. I love building up the offensive line. That the offensive line and your defensive line are your two most important units, in my opinion. You've got to win the trenches. You've got to win the line of scrimmage. And with the way that Dan Campbell's going to want to play, Sewell's a nasty run blocker. So I think just right off the bat, he fits as a right tackle at the least. Then the Panthers were the first team to draft a corner. I'm not shocked by this because if Sewell had been on the board, I feel like he would have been the pick here. Because I had the Lions, I kind of was leaning towards they needed to take a receiver because they have no receivers, basically, at this point. But I like the Horn pick for the Panthers. I thought Sewell was going to be on the board here, to be honest. But now they have a strong physical corner to match up with number ones so that they could have Dante Jackson with his speed and quickness and aggressive nose for the ball play on the other side of the field and kind of feast on bailout throws. He'll have more time to read the field, whatever, or read what's going on and then jump passing lanes. Horn honestly, Horn could make Jackson's life way easier. Then the Broncos went defense like I expected, but they went with Patrick Surtain rather than Micah Parsons, which is not a surprise. I thought this was I thought this would be their second option. I thought it was down to Surtain or Parsons, and they went with Surtain. Great pick. This guy was, if we're talking about technique, tackling, fundamentals, he's number one corner in the draft. Horn had really risen up. I love Horn's physicality, but Surtain is really long. He's fast. I don't know. He still very well could end up end up being the best corner long term. Horn, some people say has more upside because he's a little more athletic and a little more physical. But I think we're just bored. I think people are just bored with Patrick Surtain. Consistent, consistently being good and doing your job is, I guess, boring to people. Devonte Smith goes number 10. Philly, who had moved down from 6 to 12, traded the 94th pick, third round pick to Dallas to move up to get Devonte Smith, which that 94th pick I believe was that the Niners pick? No, it wouldn't have been the Niners. Because I think it was the 94th pick that they traded to move up. So, this is exactly what the Eagles needed. And, a lot of people had Smith going before, and then there's a lot of mock drafts that had Waddle falling all the way to them at 12. I think this is a much better fit. Jalen Reagor kind of profiles as that Waddle-type player. Devonte Smith is a true number one. He's going to create separation. He and Hurts know each other. They have played together. Not super extensively, but they have. It's like they have been together on the practice field, been on the field for a few snaps. Devonte Smith is the best early separator in this draft. And for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts is pretty much, if his first read isn't open, he's going to take off and run. He doesn't really go through his progressions. And that's something he can grow into, hopefully over time. But if you're wanting to make your quarterback's life easier, whose tape, when you watch his tape, he looks at that first read and that first read's not open, he starts to run. Smith is the perfect guy because he's going to create early separation. Despite him being slim and maybe too frail, Devonta Smith he's the best route runner I've ever seen at the college level. And you can't press him because he's so good at creating space off of his release. You can't get your hands on it to press him. It's like guys can't overpower him because he doesn't give them the chance. And Smith is extremely sudden and quick. I think this is exactly what Hurts needs. I think this is exactly what the Eagles needed. Then you had the big trade up where the Bears traded up from 20 to 11 to get Justin Fields. So the Giants, in Dave Gettleman's first trade down ever, in any round ever, Justin Fields, or the Giants get the Bears' first round pick they got pick 20. They got their first round pick next year, and they got fourth round pick one year and a fifth, or a fourth and a sixth, or a fifth and a sixth. I thought for the Giants, I thought it was a brilliant move. I thought it was a great move. Get future assets. Take advantage of a team that's desperate. And for the Bears, I'm kind of like, is Fields a better prospect than Trubisky? Yeah. Do I think he has issues that make me think, well, this guy's not that much different from Trubisky? Yes. Fields has incredible tools. Trubisky has great tools as a quarterback. Trubisky also had some mental hangups and deficiencies at the position that he never fixed. Fields has some hangups on his tape mentally that I'm not sure he can fix personally. So, but this is what the Bears needed to do. This is exactly what they needed to do. Because they've got to figure out quarterback, and Andy Dalton's not the answer long term. As much as I like Andy Dalton, I'd love to see him have some kind of bounce back. I don't think it's coming. And Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace needed this because this is the big swing that could save their jobs. And I just don't think Andy Dalton was going to save their jobs. Then the Cowboys, after trading down, picking up an extra third-round pick, and Dallas was really upset when Horn went 8 and Surtain went 9. Because those were their top targets. They wanted a corner. They wanted a long, physical corner. And they weren't able to get that. So they trade down and they get Micah Parsons. With Leighton Vander Esch, he's dealt with injuries since starting off his career really, really great. Jaylen Smith, was a big injury question when they drafted him in the second round. He developed nicely, but he's seemed to kind of fall off. You add Parsons to this linebacker group, and he can rush the passer. Before going to Penn State, he was a 5-star defensive end recruit. And when you watch him play linebacker, he really plays more like a penetrating defensive lineman, an up-the-field defensive lineman. He's still learning how to play linebacker. Parsons could be a weapon for the Cowboys because they could use him as an edge rusher and develop him potentially as a middle. Although, I don't think you should develop him as a middle linebacker. I think he's a strong side outside linebacker. He can play off ball on nickel downs, but he can play off the edge on early downs. I mean, and he's a physical freak. 6'3", 246. Dude ran a 4.38, 4.39 40. just explosive player. The Cowboys' biggest needs were pretty much all defensive. Corner, thinking linebacker of the future, and to me, defensive line just in general. But particularly for me, particularly on the they needed someone to really dominate the edge or lock in on the edge across from DeMarcus Lawrence, because I would like to upgrade from Randy Gregory. But Parsons can do a lot of different things. And he was the best defensive player on the board. I think that was a good pick. And then the Chargers, just dream scenario of one of the top 2 tackles sliding to him. They get Rashaan Slater. My buddies who are Chargers fans loved this. This was just peak scenario for them, because we all love Slater as a prospect. He's not as big as people love their tackles to be, but he's good. And at worst case, this guy can play every spot on the line. Every single spot. All 5. And I think he could be a Pro Bowl to All-Pro player at any of those positions. Sorry, this time of year just... Ugh. Then we had another trade-up. So we had no trade-ups during the draft in the top 10. In the top 9. But then between picks 10 and 14, we had 3 trade-ups. So the Jets traded up from 23 to 14 to get Elijah Vera Tucker, who he played tackle in college, maybe could play tackle in the NFL, but I think, and most people think, he is a guard and a all-pro caliber guard. This is going to improve the Jets' offensive line even further. Just protecting Zach Wilson. I think that is the most important thing. Doing what the previous regime did not do for Sam Darnold. And then at 15, Mac Jones is the 5th quarterback off the board to the Patriots. The Patriots didn't move up at all. They were patient, and they got who I think was their guy. Now, of course, Bill Belichick came out and said, Cam Newton's our quarterback. And honestly, I believe that for this season. But I had no belief that Cam Newton is their plan for future seasons. And I think Mac Jones is going to give him a run for his money really quickly, because Mac Jones is the perfect quarterback for the Patriots. The mind is the most important thing to them, and that's what they're getting with Mac Jones. They're getting a guy who will read, recognize, and react quicker than any quarterback in this draft. He will make quick, good decisions faster than any quarterback in this draft, at least right off the bat. And he's still got room to grow as a player. There are things that Tom Brady improved at physically at the NFL level with the Patriots. I am sure that Mac Jones can improve physically further because he's not done developing. I just think that this is a great pick for the Patriots. Then you had probably the first pick where I was like, where I thought for a second, because I like Zaven Collins. I do think this is a little bit of a reach. However, he's exactly the kind of player, should I say, I think he fits really well for what the Cardinals want to do defensively. And this is another versatile piece. This guy played, and he played an interesting defense at Tulsa, because they played a lot of 3-down linemen with 2 or 3 linebackers behind. but this guy has incredible athleticism for his size. He's 6'4", 6'5", 260. Although at the recent medical check, he weighed in at 270. I'm not super worried about that, to be honest, though. Because this guy was playing at 260. And his movement skills are incredible for a guy as big as he is. His coverage ability, despite he's not as fast or as athletic as Micah Parsons and Jamin Davis, although Jamin Davis has shown really good coverage flashes too, Collins' technique in coverage and in zone coverage is second to only Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in this draft, in my opinion. Collins is a great cover linebacker. He's also a really good pass rusher. You can put this guy on the edge of like your 3-4 base, and he can do all things. He can drop, he can rush, he's good against the run. This guy can play on the edge on nickel downs. He can play or off ball or play your nickel linebacker role on passing downs. Or at the very least when you're in your nickel sets. This guy can do a lot. And as a blitzer coming up the middle, like this guy has the strength and quickness to be a just absolute handful blitzing up the middle. So I like the fit for Arizona. I really do. I really expect them to go corner, but if you were part of the group that wasn't fully sold on Caleb Farley's health or Greg Newsome's durability, I get why they did what they did, because this is going to make life easier. A guy like Collins, who can improve your underneath coverage and improve your pass rush, that's going to make life easier on your secondary players. And now we get to Las Vegas. They still act oh my goodness, but they still act like the Oakland Raiders. Do I dislike Alex Leatherwood as a prospect? No, not at all. I didn't have this man in my top 50. I didn't have him in my top 10 offensive tackles. And this man goes 17th. He is the third offensive tackle and fourth offensive lineman off the board. As you can see from Scouts Inc., they had him listed as a guard, second ranked at his position, and they had him at 60 overall with an 80 overall grade. Just to show the difference between him and Collins. Collins was the 27th best player with an 89 grade. Who was listed as the top prospect at his position, which is interesting. But I think they had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as an inside linebacker. Which Leatherwood, now this they have him listed as an offensive tackle, but I know he's not the second rated offensive tackle. So that's kind of weird to see that number. I just, it's just kind of outstanding to me. Because, like, you look at Mac Jones. Mac Jones was the 15th rated player. Goes at 15. Not that that's usually how it always goes down. But, Zaven Collins was a little bit of a reach, but I get it. And there's a lot of guys kind of in this grade range. So, whatever. I don't know what the Raiders are doing. Like, I get Gruden likes his guys. This guy was going to be available at their next pick. He was going to be. And if he wasn't, big whoop, because there were better players that were going to be available at that pick. Whether you wanted a guard or a tackle. Oh my gosh. I really don't know what Gruden and Mayock are doing. Because they're not, I mean, at this point, because to me, it's outstanding how they waste their first round pick, but they do pretty good later. Like, I think they do fine later. I mean, you look at guys like Max Crosby going in the 4th round. What was it, in 2019? That guy's turned out to be way, like, a great pick. Awesome pick. Clem Farrell, they drafted with the 4th pick. They draft Jonathan Abram at, what was it, 24? Josh Jacobs, 27. That worked out pretty well. Last year, they drafted Damon Arnett in the 1st round. He's not as good as 2019 second-round pick Trayvon Mullen, which isn't a surprise because I had a higher grade on Trayvon Mullen than I did on Damon Arnett. Because a lot of people had Damon Arnett like either at the tail end of the 1st or really mostly in the 2nd round. I had Damon Arnett as a 3rd round at best guy. There's a reason he didn't start until he was a 5th-year senior at Ohio State. Because he wasn't as good as the other guys. And even then, he wasn't the top corner even then. That was Jeff Okudah. So, but I just think this... Do I think Leatherwood can be a solid player? Sure. That's not what I'm drafting in round 1. You've got Tevin Jenkins, who I think is my favorite tackle in the draft, who, to me, is exactly the kind of player that John Gruden would love, you would think, but apparently he doesn't pick guys who aren't from Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State in the 1st round. Unless they're Jonathan Abram. Who went to Mississippi State. And was a little overrated. He was a solid safety prospect, but I didn't have a 1st round grade on Jonathan Abram either. So, yeah, good luck, Raiders fans. And then this was a pick that I loved. So, ignore this 21st ranking and 90 grade, which is still great. Ignore that for a second. Because Jaylen Phillips is better than that. Here's why Jaylen Phillips is even available at this point in the draft. He is just a hair under 6'6", 260, 265. This man ran a 40 time in the 4.5s, which is ridiculously freaky. And he is the best pass rusher based on technique in this entire draft. And he has elite explosiveness. His athletic testing numbers are up there with any of the elite edge rushers in recent years. Like, this guy is just as athletic as Chase Young, and in my opinion, his technique is better than Chase Young. The reason he's even available at 18 is because when he was at UCLA, he had to medically retire because of concussions, mostly. He finally he transferred to Miami. Well, he got cleared to get back on the field, transferred to Miami, sat out a year, which was bullcrap in my opinion. And then this year, he lit it up. He was amazing. He was the best edge defender in the country. I don't care what anyone says. And sure, he may not have had as many sacks last year. I think he ended up with like 8.5. Gregory Rousseau had 15.5 the year before. A lot of those were an illusion. I say an illusion. A lot of those were coverage sacks. And I'll get into Rousseau later when he comes up. But Phillips is an elite player, and I get why Miami, instead of going tackle, drafted Jaylen Phillips, because they probably see exactly what I see. And that is a top 5 pass rusher. An elite pass rushing prospect, a future all-pro level player. That's what Phillips is. at arguably the most important position in football after the quarterback. I think this is one of the best picks in the draft as far as I'm concerned. Is there risk involved? Yes. But I'm willing to risk it for him. And of course, you could argue Zaven Collins is the first pass rusher off the board, but I think he's more versatile than that. Jaylen Phillips is the first pure pass rusher off the board in this draft, and that's how it should be. Then you have the Washington football team, nailed it first time this time, and they drafted another one of my favorite players, Jamin Davis. Once again, you see that 25 overall grade, but you realize that all the players between, as Jones is rated 15 and he's rated 25, and they all have a 90 grade. So don't just look at where, well, it's like he was ranked 25th and they picked him 19. That's a little bit of a reach or whatever. The grade's fine. And kind of with Collins, yes, he's a 27, it's an 89, and you had all these guys with 90 grades. I had Zaven Collins basically in the same range. I mean, I thought that was a fine pick. But anyway, I think Washington made a great pick here with Davis. He's going to inject a ton of athleticism and potential into the middle of their defense. He is built exactly like Ron Rivera's preferred linebackers. Ron Rivera's defenses with Carolina had Luke Kuechly, who was an elite athlete with an elite mind. Jamin Davis maybe is not as smart as Kuechly, because I don't know if there's been a linebacker as smart as Kuechly in the past, decade. Or who has come out since, should I say, a guy with his intelligence, because he was one of the smartest players at the position, and his athleticism. Those guys just don't exist. Because Kuechly's a Hall of Famer. Jamin Davis, though, athletically, more athletic, and he flashes on tape this ability in coverage to bait quarterbacks. He had a 85-yard pick six against the Tennessee Volunteers last year. He also blew up our run game a ton. He shows elite upside, and he shows that he has great read and recognition ability. And in terms of playing the linebacker position, I'd say he's right now probably better at playing linebacker than Micah Parsons is, and he's not far off as an athlete. He's a little slimmer, but he's as fast, maybe even a little bit quicker. But they're basically similar physical profiles, except Parsons a little thicker. I love Davis. I think this is a great pick for Washington. I kind of thought, it's like early on I had him going receiver, but I'm like, they have Samuel, they have McLaurin. They could probably get a good, kind of bigger bodied contested catch option, or intermediate kind of option, day two. So I like this pick. I thought they could go corner here too, but I think they were not really excited about the idea of having to deal with Farley's potential back issues. I know there's a lot of people saying, hey, this is an 80% thing. Yes, he had two different back procedures, but they weren't on the same disc. They were on different discs, and the second surgery, the first time they decided not to mess with that. Apparently, both of these disc issues stemmed from a deadlifting accident, and he got the worst one repaired, and then this one flared up during the training process for his pro day. We'll get more into Farley, but I think that was a red flag for Washington. And you also I just see that the red and gold, and I just think, the old name. So you've got Davis there at 19, and apparently they just didn't think the value was there for Newsome, and I get that. And the Giants, after trading down, They get a pure slot option in Kadarius Toney. I thought that a lot of people thought maybe Elijah Moore was going to go here, but I just felt like Moore was a little too small for Gettleman's taste, even if I think he's a better all-around receiver than Toney. Toney is just a masterful slot guy. His suddenness and quickness is ridiculous in the slot. A lot of people had him going to 19 to Washington for a long time. And you see that number there, that 32 or 32nd ranked prospect, 88 grade. Once again, I'd kind of ignore that a little bit because a lot of people had Toney in this range anyway. So I think Toney adds to this offense, which one argument for me was they probably should have done something else in that what they could add to the offense, really they could have added later, but Toney is an elite slot option. They just signed Kenny Golladay, but Golladay has some injury, history, but he's a true number one. You have Darius Slayton, who they drafted in the 5th round in 2019, who's been great. He has a specific skill set. He's like a downfield receiver. He does have catch and run ability on slants, but he's not like an all-around run all the routes, this and that. Slayton is going to take, he's going to grab hitches, he's going to take slants, he's going to go deep. And that's not a bad thing. He's really good in that role. He's a really good perimeter receiver. Not a number one, but he's an awesome number two. They have Sterling Shepard, who can play some in the slot, but he's played mostly out wide, who is more of a technician-type receiver, more of a possession receiver. Now you get Toney, who gives you after-the-catch ability, incredible underneath separation. He's your bailout guy. He's a first down getter kind of guy. And he can be moved around and used in a number of ways. He can play out of the backfield. This guy's a playmaker with the ball in his hands. And a shifty playmaker that they don't have. Slayton's a really good, you get the ball in his hands and he goes, but he's not shifty. But he's really good in kind of straight lines. Toney creates in space. So, and you pair those guys with Evan Ingram when he's healthy. I look at the weapons group, and with Barkley back healthy, and they might add to their offensive line later in the draft. We'll see, but that offensive line still, Andrew Thomas should be better in year 2. Nate Solder should be fully healthy. The line should be better. Daniel Jones has no excuses not to take some kind of significant step forward this year, in my opinion. And if he doesn't, the Giants need to be looking for a new quarterback. And personally, I think they already should be. Then the Colts, I really thought they were going to go left tackle. But apparently they really believed in Kewidi Paye. At 6', they got him listed at 6'3", 261. I thought he came in at closer to 6'2" or 6'2.5", 260. Coming into the process, everyone was 6'4", 270, 275. It's no, he's a little shorter. And that's not necessarily a problem. This guy's very explosive, but there are things I like about him. I'm not necessarily a massive fan of Paye. I think there's better value in the guys in the 2nd round. I knew Paye was going to go in the 1st round, and it was possible he was going to be the first pure pass rusher taken. This is about the range I had Paye going in. I'm not in love with him as a prospect. So, but he fits the profile of what of the kind of pass rushers the Colts like. And he's versatile and you can move him around. He's so strong and explosive you can even like reduce him down and play him inside. So it's a solid pick for the Colts. Like so far, like I like the picks. I love the value of some of these more than others. And then you have the Raiders. I don't know why. I don't even know why they exist. And then, of course, my Titans get on the board, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, we need a number 2 receiver. Elijah Moore's on the board. Rashad Bateman's on the board. I'd love one of those 2 guys. Honestly, my man Tevin Jenkins is on the board. Christian Darrisaw's on the board. We could go tackle. I really would have loved Tevin Jenkins because he would have fit our offense perfectly and our style of play perfectly at right tackle. And since Phillips was off the board, I wouldn't have been super excited about like a pass rusher really, although I could have understood like I don't know, I feel like any of the pass rushers really would have been reaches except for maybe Azeez Ojulari. But we have a speed guy in Harold Landry and we really need a power guy. And no, I was not a fan of picking Jason Owe because he is so raw. I think that guy is a mid to late second round guy at best just because he is so physically raw. I get why someone would take him the first round because he has the best measurables of any, like athletically, of any pass rusher ever. But the Titans decided to go with Caleb Farley, which I was okay with going corner. I would have liked an Asante Samuel because there's not really any health concerns. And he's so smart. But we like to play off coverage a lot. And if we just are looking at the tape, Farley is amazing in off coverage. And if I take the glass half full, and for most people the glass completely full view of Farley was a top 10, like back into the top 10 level talent. A lot of people had him as their top corner. And we're getting him at pick 22. Even with the back surgery dropping his grade, he's still the 19th overall player. We're getting him at 22. Like solid value. And catching guys who were higher graded until an injury thing has worked out for us. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry. Those guys have really worked out for us. Those guys dropped because of injuries. Landry playing on a bum ankle for a lot of his last season in college, and that hampering him during the athletic testing process, even though he did well, in my opinion. Jeffrey Simmons, of course, tore his ACL in like February, getting ready for the combine, or the end of January, getting ready for the combine in 2019. Yeah, 2019. I'm chill with it. Then the Vikings, I had them taking a lineman at 14. I thought it would be Elijah Vera Tucker because I kind of assumed Slater and Darius would be off the board, but there were scenarios where I saw Slater or Sewell, mostly Slater, dropping to 13 of the Chargers, even though Slater's my top tackle, and Darius being available for the Vikings at 14 and them taking Darius there. Now they get Darius at 23 after trading down with the Jets. And Scouts Inc. had him as their 20th ranked guy. I thought Darius was a top 15 talent or level talent. Just a really good pick for them. They have a bunch of young offensive linemen there. They have Brian O'Neill, who they drafted a few years ago, who's been really good. They drafted Ezra Cleveland last year. Cleveland can play guard. You put Darius at tackle. This guy had, out of the players that played last year, Darius had the best pass blocking tape, and I'd argue his pass blocking tape is actually better than Sewell was in 2019, and is as good or better than Slater's was in 2019. So I love Darius. I love the value at 23 for him. I'm not a huge fan of picking running backs in the first round, but I love Najee Harris. He's like a somewhat smaller Derrick Henry. I don't know if his top end speed is quite as good as Henry's, but he's arguably, here's the crazy thing. Najee Harris is arguably the shiftiest running back in this class, and he's 232. He or Trey Sermon are the most powerful running backs. Najee has explosiveness, and he's got great hands. He's arguably the best receiving running back in this draft. The top three are him, Etienne. I actually think he's got more downfield receiving potential than Etienne. Etienne had more catches, but Harris, I think, showed more versatility in the passing game, personally. And then you have Kenneth Gainwell, who also great receiver. And depending on whether you have Demetric Felton as a running back or wide receiver. But the Steelers need a running back. The thing, though, is, you know what really helps your run game? Having a good offensive line. Now, tackles and guards are falling in this draft. Well, at least some tackles. Now, Alex Leatherwood's going way higher than I thought. I thought 6 Bama players could go in the first round. I just had Barmore and not Leatherwood. Now, going back to Leatherwood. But the Steelers can still improve their offensive line further down this draft. They get a somewhat explosive, but an all-around playmaking back who can contribute all over and do everything. And the Steelers love that. That's what the Steelers covet at running back. Le'Veon Bell and James Conner were kind of bigger backs who turned out they could do everything. Harris is an incredible talent, who I would say out of those 3 guys is the most physically gifted. I think it's a great pick. And then you have the Jaguars. Now this one, I get it. And of course, Scout Sync had moved Etienne above Harris. I had not. Etienne, 5'10", 215, ran the low 4.4s. He's got breakaway speed. He really doesn't have as much wiggle as you would expect, though. He's more of a one-cut-and-go guy. Not that that's a problem, and he can juke people, but his change of direction ability and shiftiness isn't as good as Harris. But he's got great explosiveness, great acceleration, great contact balance. It's hard to get this guy on the ground. He's really good at absorbing contact. You pair him with James Robinson, but they have like a guy in Robinson who is kind of who showed last year he could be kind of a bell cow and a decent all-around running back, like who could contribute in the passing game. Of course, Lawrence and Etienne have chemistry together too, but to me, this was a place where you could have upgraded your defense with a Barmore or a Morig, although they could still get one of those guys at 33 now. And maybe Etienne would have gone off the board to like the Bills at 31. Or at 30. Or to the Bucks at 32. So, but I thought Barmore could have gone off the board to either of those teams as well. So, we'll see what the Jaguars do at 33. Etienne's solid. I don't love drafting running back in the first round, especially when I have other needs that definitely need to be filled. This I thought was an interesting pick, which they've got Newsome. I thought Newsome came in at 6'1". I guess it was somewhere like 6 foot and some change. Newsome had a great pro day. I think this was great value for the Browns. After they cut Sheldon Richardson, I really thought Barmore was going to be the pick here. I had also had Zaven Collins going here, because I thought he could provide, like I said, for the Cardinals, he could play the edge. He could play off the ball. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. I got plenty of sleep. But maybe it's because I'm not breathing enough. But I like the Newsome pick for the Browns. You can never have too many good corners. This does put second-round pick Greedy Williams on notice, former second-round pick from 2019. He's dealt with some injuries. Greedy Williams is a really talented, toolsy guy. But the upside is they can play Williams and Newsome on the outside and have kind of bigger, longer guys, and you could maybe move Ward, their first-round pick from 2018, into the slot some against really dangerous slot options. It gives you great rotational depth, a lot of talented quality corners. And I love Newsome's tape a lot. And then you have the Ravens. As I expected, they drafted a receiver in the first round. I had Terrace Marshall for a bit, but Bateman was another choice. I like the Bateman pick. They've got him at 6 foot. I think he came in at 6'1" at his pro day. He did come in at 190 though. But Bateman is exactly, to me, is the perfect kind of complementary option that they need. Watkins is a deep down the field, stretch the field. He can also play in the intermediate game. Bateman gives you a lot of that, but he's a great technician at the position. He's physical. People thought he was bigger than this, and you saw it on tape because he bullied corners. He played physically. That's not going to change just because he came in a little smaller than people expected. Not to mention, you get him in a NFL strength and conditioning program, he could probably put on a little bit of weight and muscle and still keep his quickness and everything that he has and speed. This guy ran like a 4.39 or a 4.4 flat 40 time. He's got really great speed. Rashad Bateman is going to be awesome for Lamar Jackson. They now have, and that allows Marquise Brown, this allows you to kind of manage Watkins' snaps so you don't overplay him so he doesn't have as much opportunity to get hurt. This allows you to manage Marquise Brown's snaps because he really is kind of frail. Unlike Devonta Smith, Marquise Brown truly is kind of a small, frail player who gets injured easily. This also allows you to play Brown more out of the slot. This allows you, and Devin Duvernay needs to get snaps out of the slot too, but this deepens your receiver core, and I think Bateman has a really high ceiling as a player. And then a lot of people question this one, and I know you're probably sitting here if you're watching this and you're seeing, wow, this guy was ranked as a 73rd prospect with a 76 overall grade. He went 28. I think Scouts Inc. is too low on Peyton Turner. Was this a reach? Yes. Yes, it was. But Peyton Turner is almost 6'6". He plays between 270 and 280. Houston had this guy playing in a 2-point stance, basically standing up on the edge. He can drop into coverage a little bit, but this guy is incredibly explosive off the ball. And it's really funny because, to me, the best physical comp for him, for me, was the New Orleans Saints' Cam Jordan, who is similarly 6'5", plays at 270 to 280, pretty much 280. He's got a lot of power, but he's really explosive. That's Peyton Turner. Turner is a freak athlete. And this is one of the things with the current, I saw articles of different people talking about it. There being less consensus. There was consensus on different guys, but there was going to be a lot more of this. There's some guys that some teams are just going to have way higher than other teams. And basically what happened was, once we got to the back end of the first round, we really saw that. It started with Leatherwood, although that was, to me, crazy. Turner, I get it. Turner is a physical freak. I like the pick because it's the Saints. And here's the other thing. When did the Saints make bad draft picks? I'm just saying, people can poo-poo Marcus Davenport. When he has been healthy, he's been extremely productive. Some of that has been health issues. But you look at Trey Hendrickson, who his sack numbers, I think, told of a better player than his actual tape did last year. But Hendrickson was like a former third-round pick, like late third-round pick, who they developed into a really good pass rusher. Peyton Turner has way better tools than him. And Davenport, had amazing tools. I'd argue Turner has as good or better tools than him and is already a more polished player. Now, one of the reasons he's down this low is he's had some injury issues. He's missed some time. Turner is a great player, and the Saints, I trust the Saints' talent evaluation. They do a good job of evaluating players. Where the Raiders, I'm not going to give the benefit of the doubt. I will give the Saints the benefit of the doubt. Then the Packers at 29 picked Eric Stokes out of Georgia. He's 6'1", almost 6'2". This guy had a 4.28 40. Some people have slowed it down and said it was really a 4.31, whatever. This guy has incredible speed. He's an incredible track guy. Also, though, they had him as the 71th overall player with a 76 grade. Most people I saw had a late second round grade on Stokes. Some people as high as mid. The physical talent is there. He's a little stiff to me, and if anything, this reminds me a lot of the Kevin King pick. And they're picking Stokes because King hasn't really worked out. Josh Jackson out of Iowa hasn't really worked out as a second-round pick. Those guys were both second-round picks. I think the Packers traded up or they traded down and ended up with like a pick at the top of the second round. That's where they drafted King. Stokes is physically talented, but I think this is a reach. And this one is a little less defensible to me than Peyton Turner. Like, if I was going to say, like, the worst picks of the first round, like, in terms of value, of course, Alex Leatherwood steals the show there. Then I'd say it's Stokes. For sure. This could work out. He has incredible physical tools, but I like his teammate Tyson Campbell. Campbell wasn't quite as fast, but the dude ran in the 4.3s. He's a little bit longer, and he's far more fluid in coverage. But the thing that Stokes has over King and Josh Jackson is his technique and press coverage is way better. He does play more physically than those guys, even though those guys are, big, long corners. So, he fits their type. This was another value. So, this one doesn't necessarily look as bad, but I have Turner graded ahead of Rousseau. And Rousseau has been sliding for me. I get why why people moved him out of first round discussion, because even here, this is a reach. This is the 30th pick, and they've got him at 48. They drafted a guy like Rousseau last year in A.J. Epinesa, a slow edge rusher. And should I say, I like Rousseau as a person, and I really hope this works out. But he's 6'7", 265. He's so long that he's really not thick enough in the way Epinesa is, to where you could slide him inside on passing downs. I mean, you can slide Rousseau in, but like Epinesa, you could play inside all the time if you wanted. I don't think you could do that with Rousseau. He doesn't have very good, quick get-off. He's not very flexible. I felt like the Bills really needed a speed rusher. I thought the pick here was going to be Azeez Ojulari or Christian Barmore, because Barmore is bigger than Rousseau, and I would say he's more explosive than Rousseau. Barmore's 315. 6'5", 310, 315. Rousseau would have been a fine pick in the second round. I just think this is a little bit of a reach. I expected Turner to go in the second round. He's a reach, but Turner's kind of one of my guys. So, this guy is slightly shorter than Rousseau. He's a little bit thicker than Rousseau. And he's way more explosive. He's got really good bend. I want to say Turner had like a 7-second 3-cone at 6'6", 270, 275. Like, that's insanely good. So, like, Turner physically is a first-round prospect. And here's another guy I would consider a reach. But, once again, I get it. Now, it's not as much of a reach here. This is the 31st pick. This is a 38 overall player, 87 grade. Jason Oweh. Oweh. Now, they've got him listed at 6'5". He's almost 6'6", I think. But he's at least 6'5". 257. He ran a 4.3 4.40 was the first report. I think they slowed it down, but it's still in the 4.3s. Like, ridiculous. He's got incredible explosiveness. But out of every pass rusher in this draft, he might be the most raw in terms of technique. Now, he had 5 or 5.5 sacks in 2019, but his run defending was terrible. Last year, he didn't have any sacks, but he did get pressure on quarterbacks, and his run defense greatly improved. He seems to be a hard worker, but I still had him in the second round. I had several people ahead of him because it's going to take a lot of work. And even at this point, he's probably as close to being an elite pass rusher as he is to being an elite tight end. So, I don't know. But if there's a team that is going to develop this guy into the best version of himself, it's the Baltimore Ravens. They do a great job of developing linebackers or outside players. And he has the athleticism that I don't know exactly how agile he is, but he seems to have enough athletic traits. I could see him being, like, you being able to develop him into to where he can play some coverage too. But, and he's just ridiculously fast. Peyton Turner was one of my favorite players that I had as potentially like a Ravens-style guy. But when they traded up from their second-round pick, or when they ditched that second-round pick and got this first-round pick as part of the Orlando Brown trade, I just didn't expect Turner to go there. So, and then at the end of the round, now, I had a bunch of people, or some of my friends had Joe Tryon as a third-round guy. If you notice here, that's an 87 grade, 38th for Oweh, 5th at the position. Tryon's 4th at the position, 37th overall, and he's got an 88 grade. Joe Tryon rose for a lot of people. Tryon, another physical. There are a ton, like, to me, there are a ton of, like, freaky physical pass rushers this year. It's just hard to dissect them all. Tryon, think of Tryon as kind of like this, almost a middle ground between Oweh and, like, Turner in a way. He's explosive. I'd say he's a little bit quicker than Turner, but he's not as powerful as Turner. And maybe not as powerful as Oweh. Definitely not as fast as Oweh. And he's got good technique. Now, he opted out this last year. But I had Joe Tryon in my top 50. Like, I had him in my top 50 as well. And he was rising the last couple weeks for me, as I really got into his tape a little more. I would say, like, and he might be out of those three guys, Turner, Oweh, and Tryon, might have the best technique. But I don't know. I like all these guys in different ways. I had Tryon ahead of Oweh, and right around the same spot or basically kind of with the same grade I had Turner. I might have had Tryon ahead of Turner, but I love Turner. But I like Tryon a lot too. I thought this was a great pick because when you look at his build, he is built just like Jason Pierre-Paul, and he's explosive. He's going to get to learn from Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. The Bucs don't have any roster needs really, so they can do whatever. And I was kind of surprised that Barmore didn't go here because if I could say there was one thing they needed, well, really, if they had two things they needed, it was talent. I thought they could use an influx of talent at their or on the D line. I felt like they could improve the. I'm trying to remember who they're. Other than Vita Vea and I'm forgetting the other guy's name. But I think Ndamukong Suh left. I don't think Suh came back to the Bucs. He might have. If he did, then it was just that spot other than him and Vea. But if Suh did leave, then they really need to replace him. I thought Barmore would be a good fit. But the other thing I had was really at pass rush, you really only had sure things in like Barrett and Jace Pierre-Paul. And Pierre-Paul's on the wrong side of 30, and he doesn't have any more guaranteed money on his contract. I felt like they needed a guy to develop for that spot, and they took him right here. So I thought this was a great pick. Because Azeez Ojulari is too much like Shaq Barrett, in my opinion. Not that having two guys who are really, really talented, like speed rushers who love the what's it called? Is it the speed chop? The cross chop. They both are practitioners mainly of the cross chop. Barrett has some a couple extra like kind of counter moves, like off speed pitches basically. Azeez doesn't yet. I just like having some variety out of my pass rushers. And I think Joe Trine gives you that because Joe Trine has incredible speed to power. So let's kind of look at like who kind of fell. So one of like my top 20 players, or two of my top 20 players didn't even get drafted in the first round. You've got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was the 12th ranked prospect for Scouts Inc. And I'm going to tell you exactly why he didn't. I don't think he was actually... Okay, yeah. Oh, so I was reading that wrong. So he's... At his pro day, I think he came in like 6'2", 221. He's a little small. He didn't work out a run. Now, remember, this is... His pro day, I believe, was after Parsons and Jamin Davis like lit their pro days on fire, running 4.3s as bigger players. So Coramoa... Or I'm just going to refer to him as Joker from here on out. So Joker didn't run at his pro day, from what I understand. Like, he didn't do a workout. And I think that hurt him. Because he's undersized and whatnot. Trevin Moehrig, who I thought was going to go in the first round. The best overall safety. He fell out of the round. He was Scouts Inc.'s 17th ranked player. Didn't go in the top 32. You've got Elijah Moore, who a lot of people were talking was the consensus fourth best receiver. Well, 5 receivers went in the first round. None of them were Elijah Moore. But some of that is because the teams that I think he fit better decided to go with other needs instead. And for the Giants, Gettleman likes bigger, more physical players, and Moore just wasn't as big as Tony. I honestly think that might be some of it. And then the Ravens really didn't need a guy like Moore because they had Marquise Brown and Devin Duvernay who fit that same kind of profile. So Moore is still on the board. He was their 23rd ranked player and the 4th ranked receiver. And then Tevin Jenkins, which they had him ranked 26th. I had Jenkins basically neck and neck with Darius. He was my favorite tackle. Or is my favorite tackle in this class. He is mean and nasty. And if he fell to... Well, whoever gets him at this point is getting a steal. The Jaguars could take him at 33. That's what Steve Minch has him doing. The Dolphins or Bengals should be running to the podium and just making this pick immediately if he's available at their pick at the top of the second round. And then you've got Barmore. They had him ranked 30th. and they've got him listed 6'4", 310. I'm a little shocked that he didn't go. He could go to the Jaguars at 33. Azeez Ojulari, 31. I honestly expected him to be one of the pass rushers taken at the end of the round. So that was a little bit of a shock to me. But I think he's great value in round 2. And there weren't as many tackles drafted as I thought. There was a lot of talk of Eichenberg being a late first-round guy, of Radins. Some people liked Mayfield a lot, although Mayfield seemed to cool down the stretch with Cosme having an incredible pro day, and some people just really liking Eichenberg, seemingly being a little more versatile, like that they believe he could play either guard spot as well as playing out at tackle. And Radins really rose throughout the end of the process because people love his technique. I would expect the Dolphins or Bengals to draft one of Jenkins or Eichenberg if they're available, for sure. And if they're both available at those picks, like one of those guys is going to go to either of those teams, or those guys are going to go to those teams. Then you got Asante Samuel Jr., who I had higher rated than this. I had a first-round grade on Samuel. I had him ahead of Greg Newsome. And basically at the end, because of the medical stuff, I had him basically rated ahead of Farley. I love Asante Samuel Jr. I think he can play outside. He would immediately be your team's best slot corner, I feel like, for most teams. But there was some buzz that Jamante Williams was going to go in the first round. I'm glad that didn't happen because I don't think he's that good. I think he's a really good running back, but he's just kind of slow to me, considering his size. Like, he's smaller than ETN, and ETN put on weight to get to 215 and still ran a 4.4 140. And some people were expecting 4.3. I really think ETN has 4.3 speed. I think as he gets used to playing or being at a little bit higher weight than what he was playing in college, because he added like 7 to 10 pounds. I want to say by the end of the season he was at like 208, 209. And he got up to like 214, 215 by his pro day, or 216. Jamante Williams came in at 212, which was smaller than I think some people expected him to be. Like 5'10", 212 was smaller than we expected of Jamante Williams. And then he runs like a 4.57 40. That's not great. That's not a very good like height, weight, speed combo, which actually does matter at running back. But I do believe in the tape, and the tape's really good. I just don't see him as like a late first, like early second round prospect. Then you got Ronnie Perkins here. A lot of people had Perkins ahead of Tron. A bunch of my friends were talking about a couple of my friends last night in our group chat were talking about I had Perkins ahead of Tron and Turner and da-da-da-da. I'm like, that's cool. I had them all in the same tier. And some people do tiers, because like if you're looking at these grades and they're all kind of similar, think of it as like a tier. So Perkins is going to be good for someone. For sure. Let's see. Of course, Radins is still on the board. I mean, lots of starting-worthy tackles on the board here, in my opinion. And Radins is going to get better at the next level, because even as good as North Dakota State is, and they're a great FCS program, and honestly, their training and stuff is probably better than some other FBS program, some of the FBS programs. That guy is going to get bigger and stronger and probably quicker at the next level, getting into an NFL team's facilities. So, like Radins a lot here, or for a team in the second round. I'm not as high as on Bolton here. This is another guy if we're looking at best available. See Tyson Campbell. You got Levon Wuzurike, Carlos Basham, Tutu Atwell, Landon Dickerson. I'm not as high on Atwell as they are, but I'm higher than I was because it turned out he did. The early report on his 40 time was off. He ran a 4.32, not a 4.42. And while he's really small, I mean, his speed and acceleration, he does create a lot of separation on tape. Of course, I have Terrace Marshall rated way higher than this because I had him as a borderline first-round grade or first-round player. I've come around on Cisco, and now I almost think that maybe we're too low on Cisco, which here's another thing. The grades severely drop off in this class at a point. We go from like the, let's see, what was Bolton? So Bolton was at 87. So we go from like 40, it's an 87. And then we get to, let's see, Dickerson, we're at 85. Cox is at 84. And then we get to, by the time we get to Cisco, 10 players later, we've gone from an 87 to an 82. That's kind of a steep drop in grades. And especially considering I actually think that I've changed my mind, come around on the fact that I think Cisco is really, really freaking good. He's probably ranked too low here at 82. Wouldn't be so shocked if he goes like high in the second round. Surratt there. Let's see. The idea I'm going through here is I'm kind of looking at, I would say all these guys are probably going to go in this next round. Maybe Hunter Longfalls. Grant might because he ran kind of a slow 40, but he is a good safety. I think they've got Rondale Moore is the kind of the joke to me. I can't believe he's down at like their 54th best overall guy with an 81 grade. Like, I get he's dealt with some injury issues, and he's a little short at 5'7". He's so explosive athletically, so gifted athletically. Great, elite change of direction. Like, this guy's a weapon in today's NFL. The crazy thing is, if he's available at the Chiefs pick and they pick him, like, because they have 2 second-rounders now because of the Orlando Brown trade, I could see them taking him and getting, like, a Chaz Surratt to improve their linebacking core, or a Jabril Cox there. I feel better about Surratt in the 3rd round, but I'd be okay with him in the 2nd round. They could get an Elijah Molden to help them at corner late down the board there. I don't know. They've got a lot of stuff. So, anyway, for the 2nd round, obviously the teams that are going to be kind of running the 2nd round, I'm going to switch to the draft cast. So, the Jaguars are on the clock right now. Of course, no one had running back as a top need for them. So, they come into the 2nd round with, I believe, 2 picks. I believe they're at 33 and 45. They have receiver lists as a need, but they do have DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, who are young, really talented receivers. So they can kind of do whatever. Offensive tackle is listed as a need, but unless they're planning on moving Cam Robinson or Jawan Taylor into guard, I don't know if they're... And Cam Robinson, they're paying franchise tag offensive tackle money this year. We'll see if they draft a tackle. To me, like, really, I think they should go Trevin Moehrig because their safety position is so bad, in my opinion. I think it's arguably the weakest in the league. And they need to improve at tight end, which I think they should probably do later down the board. personally. Like in the third round. So if we're looking at their picks at 33 and 45, I say go Trevin Moehrig. And they could still just go best available. Like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah would be a really good fit just because he's just so good. Kind of wanting to look at the draft order. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Rounds. Let's go round 2 here. So, yes, you got the Jaguars and the Jets. Jets at 34. So, they traded up with the Vikings to get Elijah Vera Tucker and really just solidify their offensive line. If they plug him in at left guard, the left side of their line with him and Mekhi Becton at tackle is going to be awesome. With that being said, the Jets really do need a running back, and Jamante Williams would be a good pick for them at 34, to be honest, just because I'd argue their running back room is not only the weakest in the league, it's one of the weakest position groups in the league. You got the Falcons in the second round. That, to me, looks like a perfect fit for Asante Samuel or Tyson Campbell. I'd go Asante Samuel because I think he's a better player. But Campbell would fit from a grade standpoint. But I'd go with Asante Samuel because I think he's the better player. Then at 35, it depends on what the Jaguars and Jets decide to do. I think by taking Elijah Vera Tucker, the Jets are signaling that they're okay with their tackle situation, I think, with a battle between George Fant and former second-round pick out of USC Chuma Edoga. So I just don't think they're going to take tackle. I don't think Falcons do. They've got Jake Matthews. They've got Caleb McGarry, who they spent a late first-round pick on a couple years ago. The Jaguars could go tackle. I don't think that's where they're going. So that's where I say the Dolphins are going to take Tevin Jenkins. And if they were to get Jenkins at 35, the Dolphins would, and I know I wasn't super complimentary of the Waddle pick necessarily, and I know Marcus Whitman, that franchise guy, kind of poo-pooed that pick. But if they get Jenkins at 35, then the Waddle pick, I think, makes way more, or just looks way better anyway. So then you have the Eagles picking at 37. What's crazy is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah could still be on the board for the Eagles at 37. There were people mocking him to the Eagles at 12. If they could get Devonta Smith and Joker out of their first 2 picks, you've got to give that an A triple plus. Then the Bengals at 38. Then the Bengals here looking really good after taking Chase in the first round because they're going to get to pick between Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Radins, Jalen Mayfield, Sam Cosmi as an offensive tackle of the future. But, they could always do something else and, make us question their life choices. Panthers with the 7th pick in the round, they went corner in the first round. Now, you'd think you would try and help out Darnold. So, depending on who doesn't go to the Bengals and Dolphins at offensive tackle, you would think the Panthers would also take an offensive tackle here. Whether they pick a guy they think can play left tackle and keep Taylor Moton at right tackle, they move Moton to left tackle, and they pick a guy who they're comfortable with at right tackle. For me, I think the Bengals should take Mayfield or Eichenberg and have them play right tackle and leave Jonah Williams at left tackle. I think the Panthers should take Dylan Radins or Jalen Mayfield and play him at left tackle and leave Moton at right tackle, where he's, leave those guys where they've been playing. Then the Broncos at 8, they went corner in the first round. Now you're sitting here in the second round, and based on the way I've run through this, Christian Barmore's still on the board. I say you just pick Barmore and supercharge your front 7. I mean, if they came out of the first 2 rounds with Surtain and Barmore, I'd be super excited if I was that organization about the future of my defense. The Lions then at 9, they didn't go receiver in the first round. They took an offensive tackle. You've got, and based on what I've just run through, no one's taken a receiver yet in the second round. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be what happens for sure, because the Panthers could go receiver instead of offensive tackle. I think that would be bad. I think it'd be a bad idea. But in this scenario, the Lions have their pick of 2 guys that I had going in the first, or at least had potentially going in the first. Elijah Moore and Terrace Marshall. Elijah Moore is a first-round talent. Terrace Marshall, borderline. If anything, DJ Chark went in the second round a couple years back to the Jaguars. Terrace Marshall has better tape than Chark did, although he had better quarterback play. He had better tape than Chark. He's more polished than Chark, but he's pretty much every bit the athlete that Chark is. So I think for the Lions, you lost Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, big physical receivers. Replace them with, I would say, Terrace Marshall. That startled me. Garage door just came up. I'd say go Terrace Marshall here if I'm the Lions. The Giants at 10, they got Kadarius Toney in after trading down the first round. Now you're looking at, to me, if I'm the Giants, personally, a lot of people had Parsons going there in the first round. I just don't like Bolton as much as other people. And I'm really not comfortable taking any of the other linebackers right now, personally, that I like. I would say then you're looking at corner. Asante Samuel's already off the board. I'd say take Tyson Campbell at corner and call it a day. I think that would be a good fit for them. Otherwise, maybe you're looking pass rusher. And based on the fact that I haven't had him go yet either, and he could go at multiple of these spots too, like the Bengals, I don't think the Bengals would. Because, the Falcons could take Azeez Ojulari instead of a corner. The Jets could take Ojulari instead of a running back. the Lions could take Ojulari or another pass rusher. But since he's on the board here, I'm going to send, instead of Campbell, I'm going to go with Ojulari for the Giants. Now we get to the Niners' next pick. They've drafted Trey Lance. You look on the defensive side of the ball for them, and they need corners. Well, I almost had him go to the Giants, but this is where I would say Tyson Campbell goes. Now, this might be a spot where Afitu Melifonwu jumps up, or Ifiatu Melifonwu pops up because of his physical traits. But Campbell, to me, has better all-around tape. He's a little bit faster. Melifonwu is a little more physical than Campbell, which is why I would potentially look at him here for the Niners, or for the Niners to take him. Not that I would, but I could see the Niners taking Melifonwu. But I would go Campbell here. So now you've got the Cowboys at 12. And they're really sitting here. They're still kind of needing a corner. Well, another guy who would fit here for the Niners is Paulson Adebo out of Stanford. And he might go there. So one of those three guys, I think, the Cowboys are also going to take one of those three guys. I'm trying to remember exactly. I have Melifonwu rated the lowest, so I'm going to have... Let's have the Niners go Adebo. Let's have the Cowboys go Campbell. And now the Jaguars at 13 with their second, with the 13th pick of the round, with their second round pick. I've had them take Morig at 33. So from here, I'm going to have I would say I would have the Jaguars go. Sorry, someone was asking me or needed something. So, Jaguars, I've got them going Morig. Honestly, they could go with another safety. Imagine if they decided, just hear me out here. Jaguars take Morig and Cisco. They go from having the worst safety group in the league to having one of the best young safety tandems potentially that we've ever seen. I'm not saying that's the pick, though. If they do pick one, they're probably not going to pick a second safety, although I think it would be a great idea. So then how about you take instead, remember, well, like I've said, we've had we have a great value pick here. How about you get Elijah Moore? Now, Shenault, to a degree, probably is best out of the slot, but Moore can move around. Shenault can play outside. Moore gives you dynamic speed. I feel like that value would be hard to pass up. And if they still want to tackle, Jenkins, Eichenberg, and let's say Mayfield are off the board. Or no, for the Panthers, actually, probably Radins. Well, right now, Jalen Mayfield's still on the board. Let's say Mayfield's still on the board. The Jaguars snap up Mayfield at 13. Like, they could go any number of ways with that pick. It really just depends. I've already had Barmore go off the board to the Broncos, so that's not the pick. Another guy that could go here, maybe Javon Holland. This one's tough for the Jaguars because they could go so many different directions.
I'm just going to go with the best player available on the board here for them, and I'm just going to go more to the Jaguars at 45. Now, that kind of stinks for the Patriots because he would be a perfect fit there for them, for how they like to play. But that's okay. Instead, now the Patriots could do a couple things. They could replace Stephon Gilmore with an Afitu Melifonwu or a Kelvin Joseph, which I was just using Melifonwu because I feel like he kind of fits the bill for the Niners and the Cowboys. I'm not as high on him as, say, guys like Kelvin Joseph or even Marco Wilson out of Florida. But I'm going to say the Patriots don't go corner here. I actually think the Patriots could go, or I think they should probably go wide receiver here. And Moore just went off the board. But you have another guy, or a couple other guys in Tutu Atwell and Rondale Moore, who would be really interesting fits. And then you have a downfield type receiver in Diami Brown, which Brown could be a choice also for the Jaguars to a degree if they want to keep Shenault in the slot. For the Patriots, though, I'm trying to think of some other kind of needs. They did lose Joe Tunney in free agency. And their offensive line still looks solid, but they could draft an interior guy. So this could be a place where you see like Quinn Miners, Trey Smith, Ben Cleveland go off the board, looking at like a pure guard, or a Dickerson or Humphrey if they want a center, but David Andrews is still around. But I really feel like the Patriots need to go pass catcher. So I'm going to go with my board, and I'm going to go with Rondale Moore for the Patriots at 14. The Chargers then at 15. Now, my buddies have been just chomping at the bit for speed in the wide receiver core for the Chargers. And Tutu Atwell is on the board. And you also have Diami Brown. I like Brown better, but I think maybe they would like the playmaking that Tutu Atwell provides a little better. Because they have Mike Williams as kind of a downfield target. So let's get Herbert some speed at receiver. The other thing that they could be looking at is corner. But I'm going to go Atwell for the Chargers here. Just keep surrounding Herbert with weapons. Now the Raiders come back up, and they need more offensive line, and there's all these great ones. So what I'm instead going to do is I'm going to give them Wyatt Davis of Ohio State, who has great potential, but has some concerns for me. He's not a second round. He's a third round prospect to me. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. That's still too charitable of a pick to give the Raiders in round 2. Although they do better in the other rounds than round 1. But there's another Ohio State lineman who is just completely average and unremarkable, who I have a fourth round grade on. And that's center Josh Myers. He's fine. So he'll be fine for the Raiders at round 2. If I'm being real, though, the Raiders should probably legitimately, though, address the offensive line and take the best interior lineman available. And based on the way they like to play, that would probably be Landon Dickerson. Actually, it is the second round, so maybe they will be. And Landon Dickerson is from Alabama, so Raiders fans hope and pray that they do something right. The Cardinals at 17. So they still need a corner, and it just so happens that a corner who I think fits their scheme, and in a lot of ways has the tools of a Patrick Peterson. You've got Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky right there. So you just plug in Kelvin Joseph there. And then the Dolphins come back around. So they're picking at 50 here. You've got an elite speed receiver in Jalen Waddle. You've got a elite pass rushing prospect in Jaylen Phillips at 18. I have them taking Tevin Jenkins and getting a awesome right tackle at 35. Now at 50, maybe now is time to work on your running back room who, let's face it, other than the Jets, their running back room doesn't look that great either. But the problem is I don't necessarily love the value here of, well, I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't love it. But Kenneth Gainwell would be my choice because I think he's the best all-around running back left. And honestly, I like his upside better than Jamante Williams because he's about the same size. I think he might be a little bit taller. I think he's got a few pounds on Williams, and he's like a full tenth of a second faster in the 40. And he might be the best all-around receiving back. It's him and Harris, I think, are the two best all-around receiving backs in the class if you don't count Demetric Felton as a running back. Now the Washington football team comes up again at 19. They went linebacker in round 1. I still think they need a corner pretty bad. They could use some help on the offensive line. In this scenario, Dylan Radins is still on the board. I think I still have him on the board at this point. Yeah. Dylan Radins would be a great pick here for their offensive line. They could go interior line, and they could go corner. And Elijah Molden could be a good choice here. Marco Wilson could be a good choice here. And they could go receiver, which Dyami Brown would be really interesting here, but he's really similar to Terry McLaurin in a lot of respects. But that's not a bad thing, having guys who can really go downfield and get it. Although I think McLaurin's a better route runner in the intermediate game than Brown. So if I'm Washington, I'd say get your left tackle of the future here and go with Radins. Which that kind of hurts the Bears. Well, not really. The Bears could draft Sam Cosmi. But they could also go corner. I don't know. I feel like, once again, I think the Bears, that you need to protect Justin Fields long term. So drafting Cosmi or whoever the best available offensive tackle is, or a Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa, who isn't from that far away, would be a great pick for the Bears. For the Titans at 21, at that point, there's really no tackles I would love taking really here. So I think you cross tackle off. We got our cornerback in Farley. So now we're looking at receiver, and honestly, Dyami Brown would be really great, but we really kind of needed more of a slot type. Some people have Dwayne Eskridge here. I'm I think he's a third-round guy. I wouldn't necessarily love that pick. Corey Davis also came out of Western Michigan. Different type of player, but it took Davis a while to get going for us. I don't know if we want to go back to the Western Michigan receiver well. There's also, like, right now, a bunch of interesting pass rushers like Ellerson Smith of Northern Iowa, who I really, really like. Sorry, I should say I love him as a prospect. Ronnie Perkins is still on the board. I've really kind of eschewed the pass rush, and that's something that any of these teams could take. The Raiders could go pass rusher too. As could the Chargers, the Cowboys. I had the Giants go with Ojulari, so the Lions could go pass rusher. Based on who I have available on the board right now, considering I sent Rondale Moore off earlier, as much as I would love to see him fall to us. It really would come down between Dyami Brown and the pass rushers. Oh, and Joseph Asai. See, I'd love to see us draft like Joseph Asai or Ellerson Smith, personally, at that spot. Osai gives us a little more coverage versatility. Smith is big and long. If I'm looking at our defense, though, and probably what Mike Variable wants, like, Osai would fit us perfectly. So I'm going to put Joseph Osai to the Titans at pick 53, 21st pick of the second round. Colts with the next pick, they went pass rusher first round. All those tackles are off the board, except for, well, I put Cosme. So let's go with Spencer Brown at 22. They need a tackle. I think he's worthy of a mid to late, or like a late second round pick. I have a feeling not that many tackles will go, but this is what I'm prescribing for teams. The Steelers are big mad that they skipped out on offensive tackle, but a lot of the great interior guys are still available right now. So the Steelers drafted Najee in the second round. While they could go with pass rusher or whatever, they really need line help. And they've got to replace one of the best centers in the game. And based on the way they like to play, I was nice. The thing is, I was nice to the Raiders. I gave them Landon Dickerson. So he's not available for the Steelers in this scenario. So I'm going to go with Quinn Miners out of Wisconsin Whitewater, because he also fits the Steelers to me to a T. Now the Seahawks are finally on the board at pick 56 for the first time. Once again, a team that, well, if we're looking at their biggest needs, I would say are, at least I would argue, offensive tackle, or just offensive line in general, pass rush, and corner. And Afitu Melifonwu just fits them so well. But I also think that Carlos Boogie Basham fits them really well. And I know that Basham has a big grade, and some people are probably like, man, I can't believe he's still on the board here. I'm going to go with Basham here for the Seahawks because they tend to like taking corners later, and they do a pretty good job of developing corners that they draft later. And they seem to just love taking pass rushers in the second round. So we'll just go with that. But they could also go corner. It's probably going to be corner or D in there, or some kind of pass rusher. Basham can play, or to me, ideally base end, moves inside on in your nickel package and plays kind of that Michael Bennett role. So then the Rams have their first pick at 57, and they've got a really good roster. But if I were to highlight kind of the needs there, maybe you're looking at an offensive tackle of the future, because Whitworth is going to be, 40 this year, playing left tackle. But you do have Joseph Noteboom, who you're hoping, I think, slides out there eventually. You could improve your interior line with a Creed Humphrey or a Trey Smith. Or you could draft a second Aaron Donald and Milton Williams, who's another guy who I think could go much higher than this. Or at least should, probably. You've also got Levi and Wuzurike, who's still on the board, too. If I'm the Rams, though, I say improve your offensive line, protect Matt Stafford, take Trey Smith. Trey Smith will plug in immediately as a starting guard, and he's got the athleticism and the size, and also has a background playing the position that maybe he could be your left tackle of the future. The Chiefs come up on the first of their 2 second-round picks. And if we're looking at their needs, so they've got Orlando Brown. Mike Rimmers is still there. They drafted Lucas Niang in the 3rd round last year to develop as a tackle. I say they don't draft a tackle now. They still could improve their interior line, but I think it's actually there's enough kind of young, developable talent and enough veterans around that maybe that's not where they should go. With Sammy Watkins moving on, they've got a lot of small, fast receivers. They could probably use a bigger receiver or another kind of downfield component. Dyami Brown's on the board, and that's really tempting. Just have a feeling that's not where they're going to go. I think what they really needed last year, other than their offensive tackles to be healthy, I think they really needed better play from their defense. And they need pass rush, I think. They've got some young corners that are developing pretty nicely. So I would say this. I would say take a guy who can play like Chris Jones. Well, I mean, you've got a Chris Jones. So you could take like an interior guy like Levi Onwuzurike or Milton Williams, and for your pass rush downs, just have this incredible interior rush. But you really need to improve that spot across from Frank Clark, and maybe a guy who can replace Frank Clark as the best of your edge rushers. And there are guys on the board right here who could absolutely do that. I'm going to go with Ronnie Perkins for Kansas City here. He's got great technique. He's got a quick first step, great bend. He's, as people who have been around the Oklahoma program have said, Ronnie Perkins was a leader from the second he stepped onto campus as a freshman. I think he's going to be great he's going to fit right into their culture and and impact their culture in a positive way. So the Browns, they got a corner. Now I think they should also focus on either edge or interior. They've got a big run-stuffing defensive tackle in Andrew Billings. Improve your pass rush by getting a beast of an athlete. And so there you've got two choices to me. You've got Milton Williams out of Louisiana Tech, who's a great athlete and a really good football player. Then you've got Levi Onwuzurike, who's still quick, not as athletic, but he's a little more developed as a pass rusher. So if I'm the Browns, I don't know. I'm just going with the upside. I take Milton Williams. Milton Williams is the best of those players. I take him. The Saints. So the Saints went with Peyton Turner in the first round for their pass rush. A lot of people, it's like the weakest position for them is corner. I say they improve that. I say they go ahead and they take Elijah Molden. He's more of a slot corner, but probably the best corner left on the board here, in my opinion. The Bills, I think, could use more impact up the middle. Like, Ed Oliver's supposed to be that guy. He hasn't necessarily been. You've got some other kind of run-stuffing interior guys. I say go ahead and take Levi Onwuzurike, because I had Williams go to the Browns. You take Levi Onwuzurike, and I feel like you feel like, well, one of these guys, either Ed Oliver's finally going to really pop, or I'll develop Levi Onwuzurike, and he'll be the guy that pops. The Packers then at 30. You got to address a receiver at some point. Dyami Brown is still on the board, and I think you feel really good about getting his skill set into your receiver group. The Chiefs then are back around at 31, so I gave them an edge guy, and then those interior rushers went, like those top interior guys. I don't think there's another one worthy of second-round consideration. I gave you Ronnie Perkins. Now I would say improve your linebacker group, and I say draft Jabril Cox, not Nick Bolton. Or Monty Rice. I really like Rice, I think, better. Ooh, that's tough. Yeah. My gut's saying Monty Rice. So go with Monty Rice at 31. If he's available, Nick Bolton probably goes there, though. And then at 32, the Buccaneers still, they can do whatever they want. They've drafted a high upside pass rusher. There isn't really an interior guy I love now. Well, there's Davian Nixon, but I still feel like he's better in the third round. But if there was anyone who could reach on the guy with the tools, you know what? Ooh, that's another guy I could have put up here as well. Is Bobby Brown out of A&M, who I was talking about. You know what? That's what we'll do for the Buccaneers. We're going to give them Bobby Brown out of Texas A&M. He's big enough and strong enough to play nose tackle, but he's super athletic. I think you could put him on the field next to Vita Vea. Your run defense would be ridiculously stout up the middle, but I think Brown can develop into a really good pass, or at least a solid pass rusher. And so there's you a second-round mock draft. That is going to be tonight. Day 2, day 3 of the draft. Well, rounds 2 and 3 of the draft are tonight. But that's kind of a preview maybe of round 2. If that's going to be the show for today. I don't really have much more I want to talk about. I might do something Saturday during day 3 and kind of talk about what I think teams are doing. Kind of follow that. Just depends on like how my Saturday goes. Otherwise, I will be back Monday with full recaps of, or kind of a full recap of intriguing picks. And next week, I'll probably go into grading teams, drafts, and off seasons. And then we'll probably step away from draft news as well during next week. We'll start talking about some other sports again, some more different news stuff. And if anything happens over the weekend involving Aaron Rodgers and that dumpster fire of a situation the Packers have created for themselves, well, we'll talk about that on Monday. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in to BlindEyeLive today. If you like the show, please hit the like button. If you want more, please hit subscribe. Please hit that bell notification turned to all so you never miss a live stream. I may also start broadcasting on Twitch. Sorry, YouTube, but you're not really promoting my content, so but thank you for everyone who is watching, listening after the fact. I do, if you're listening to this, the archive version, please leave a comment. I do read the comments. So thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all very much, and I will see y'all on Monday or maybe tomorrow.